Hello and welcome to the trade setup. In this video we are looking at CoreWeave. It is time for another update, and today we will be discussing about the structure that has developed since the previous video where we managed to follow through to the downside very nicely from the area of resistance that we are tracking, although it did extend considerably more than we necessarily expected within the direct push to the downside. Now, before we get there, I would like to go quickly through the larger time frame to go a little bit through the history of what we have been tracking here. And on this chart, we have been tracking ever since we were somewhere around this area. We were looking at this 5-wave structure to the upside as a wave 1 complete, and we were looking for the correction in a wave 2. Now, for this wave 2 correction, we were looking to reach the area of support between the $97 all the way down to the $48.5 level, at which point, when we had this initial 3-wave structure to the downside complete, we were already looking for the possibility of a low. We had fulfilled all the minimum expectations at that point, and we were looking for the 3rd wave to the upside that would unfold. And then, since we didn't manage to create a clear 5-wave structure to the upside, we were extremely cautious of this area, of this pattern that has formed to the upside, and we were tracking relevant areas of support for continuation in a direct push to the upside. But as I was mentioning, even at that point, the likelihood would still remain for a new low, a reset basically of the larger wave 2 in white, and we had a very relevant area of support at these levels to indicate to us that this structure is likely not going to form a clear 5-wave pattern to the upside that would give us the high probabilities for a continuation in the uptrend. And in that case, we were watching still for the possibility of an ABC pattern within the green interpretation, within which we would have only really been looking for a reset within the wave B in yellow. That was the most likely scenario to happen, but it seems that wasn't even the case, so we can even remove the green scenario now. We broke here below the 78.6% retracement, and after that, it was just straight downside this time, and not even a brief recovery really. So now in this downtrend, we are looking for a couple of ways within which it could complete, because I could allow it to be an ABC pattern, no problem. We could be looking here for a 5-wave structure down. Now in this case, it would need to be within an ending diagonal, because within these first few waves to the downside, we clearly have only 3 waves in this initial movement down, then only really 3 waves in this additional movement down, which is really suggesting to me that we probably need to be tracking something like a 1, 2, 3, where we have here an internal ABC pattern, which is what we have been tracking in the very previous video. The last video, we have been looking here at this ABC pattern to be unfolding. Now within the wave C, we are most likely in this case looking at an impulse, and in this area we probably are heading towards a local bottom. I do see a few ways we could actually still extend lower. We don't even need to necessarily have this worked out as an impulse, but the current working count is that we have here a 1 2 1 2 setup, so a double 1 2 setup, a 3rd wave down, a 4th wave up, and then here this is what I am tracking as the 5th wave down. Now it did develop in a much sharper way, this 5th wave to the downside, than anticipated necessarily, probably fueled by the negative outlook that is seen here on this chart and the financial aspects of the chart. But right now, within this 5th wave to the downside, I even here I actually have a couple of ways I could track this pattern, where I could argue that within this wave 5 we have here a 1 2 3, here a 4th, and then here would be the 5th wave, which would be unfolding at this point. Now within this supposed wave 5 to the downside, we can actually even add a count, where in this case I would probably be looking only here for one more significant low before expecting a larger retracement. Now keep in mind, this would still be part of the larger wave 3, so we would still have a 1 2 3, and then I would still expect a 4th and a 5th to continue in this downtrend lower. Unless we manage to break above the relevant areas of support, we will need to continue to track the downside in this area. And yeah, that isn't necessarily what we wanted to see, what we wanted to hear, especially since we are, from a large time frame perspective, already reaching the 100% extension of the initial wave down, yeah, that is at the $69 level, and we seem to be headed that way. Now, I don't believe necessarily we will get there internally within this wave 3 to the downside directly. We may end up seeing the larger retracement within the white interpretation before that. Now, in the yellow scenario, we are tracking, yeah, just this, where we have this third wave still extending lower, and then we still have a fourth wave even after we get, yeah, let me actually remove this. So after we complete this internal 1, 2, 3, fourth, and the fifth, in the yellow interpretation, we would actually still need an additional fourth and an additional fifth to have a full count within a wave C to the downside. But I would like to add that it isn't completely necessary. Yeah, sometimes we complete the corrections early, where I could argue that this entire structure to the downside, instead of being an ABC pattern, it could unfold within a WXY structure, in which case we could have here easily an ABC movement to the downside, which could complete within this internal wave Z that we are tracking here in white. So we may get multiple additional lows, but it's not necessary. Now, as I was looking across the markets, it is quite a general bearish sentiment all over, and yeah, we do see it on this chart especially. But as we do here in many of them, we are prepared to see a more significant relief rally. Now, some of them may find a bottom rather sooner rather than later, but with many of them we actually still need to see additional lows. But once this larger pattern is complete, once this larger structure is complete, many of them will manage to form even additional new all-time highs. I'm not necessarily too convinced that this chart is prepared to start a wave 3 to the upside, considering the larger, wider market sentiment and the sector that it is within. Yeah, we may still see quite a significant rally within many of them, but I'm not necessarily looking for the third wave to start in a very direct fashion even after we bottom here in this wave 2. Now, that doesn't mean we cannot be looking for a larger movement to the upside. We could even form an initial 5-wave move up over a larger time frame, from where we have an additional 1-2 set up within a larger wave 3, and we will be tracking this idea very closely. But yeah, this is from a wider perspective where I am quite cautious. There is a lot of fear in the market, but there is a little bit too much at this point, where when most people are looking for a crash, when everyone is in disbelief of any continuation to the upside and in extreme fear, which is quite present at this moment, it is usually not going to happen. And yeah, most often we do still see the continuation in the uptrend, and this is where or when the euphoria might appear in certain fifth waves of certain stocks, certain charts, like the Nvidia chart, which is also looking for a wave 5, like the energy fuels chart, which is also looking for the wave 5, and that is where we may see here quite a significant rally as well, yeah, once we complete this pattern to the downside. But for that, we will need to find some areas of resistance that will be critical to be broken for a more clear signal that we have indeed completed this structure. Now, within this push to the downside, it is in the pre-market, and we do already seem to open in lower prices. So maybe we have even formed here this internal wave 4, and we are in the fifth wave to the downside. I would probably not concern myself too much with this very internal structure at this point, and instead I would like to explore the larger areas of resistance that we really need to watch out for once it is complete. Now, we will use the current bottom that we have for the resistance areas. Those will need to be adjusted as we move lower, but for now we can track for resistance on the for this third and the fourth here. Yeah, the wave 4 resistance area is between the $89 all the way up to the $104 level at the 50% retracement. Now, with that said, this is from a larger scale perspective. This is from the idea of an impulse forming to the downside. Not 100% the case. It is not guaranteed it will play out as an impulse in the end, but this is the area of resistance for such a scenario, right? But I do also want to point out that within this structure to the downside, yeah, I could actually argue, and this was the third wave here, yeah, I could actually argue that this wave 5 to the downside, this internal 1, 2, 3, fourth, and then this wave 5 could actually be playing out also as an ending diagonal. And that is why I would like to also track an internal area of resistance at these levels for an indication that, yeah, this internal structure to the downside, this internal wave 5 is coming to a stop, and that is why I will be watching out here for resistance at the levels between the $80 all the way up to the $84.6 for a signal. Yeah, a break here would be a signal that this pattern is likely done and that we are heading into the larger area of resistance. Now, this isn't necessarily the most likely interpretation to work out, to play out, to push into the 61.8% retracement and then still manage to find an additional low, but this is the level I would need to see broken for a more clear signal that, yeah, indeed this movement is done. And for now, these are the levels, this is the trade setup. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, don't forget to subscribe and let me know what else you want me to cover, and I'll do my best to do that in the days and weeks ahead. And until then, I hope you have a nice day, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye bye.